I was betrayed and revived as a level 1 skeleton, then I kept evolving. My name was Mercer. Revive was my only skill, and everyone called it a cruel joke. It could return me from death exactly once. That sounded useless to people who planned on surviving. During a dungeon raid, my party treated me like a pack mule. They loaded every supply bag across my shoulders and called me dead weight. When bugbears poured from a lower pit, the raid captain made his decision instantly. He shoved me over the edge and ran with the others. I hit the floor surrounded by claws, clubs, and very motivated teeth. I fought with a broken blade until the blade stopped mattering. The bugbears tore me apart. Then, Revive activated. I opened my eyes beneath my own blood. For one hopeful second, I thought the skill had worked perfectly. Then, I looked down. White bone covered both arms. My ribs were empty. Pale fire burned where my heart should have been. A black puddle showed me a grinning skull. A status line appeared above the reflection. Level 1. Species, Skeleton. Undead designation, Coal the White. Revive, consumed. The crushed leg had rebuilt as bone. I could stand without breathing. I needed no sleep, and ordinary pain had become distant pressure. The useful rule appeared beneath the bad news. Evolution would become available at level 5. The system gave no explanation for the wrong body. It gave me a route. Kill monsters, gain levels, evolve. I still had my human mind inside a body built for endurance. I tested the broken blade, my balance, and the fire behind my eyes. Everything responded. The body was wrong, but it was mine to command. Then I remembered Kayla Mercer, my younger sister. We had separated after an argument that looked embarrassingly small from the grave. Death had not erased my promise to protect her. I would evolve, find Kayla, and reach S-rank strength. Revive could keep the joke. I would own the ending. A stronger goblin entered the pit and kicked my skull. It saw loose bones, a broken weapon, and free loot. I stayed still while it picked up the blade. The goblin leaned close enough to inspect the body. I trapped its wrist and drove the metal beneath its jaw. It folded across me. The level notice jumped from 1 to 3. Human intelligence had beaten the stat gap. The dungeon had paid me for looking helpless. The goblin dropped the short knife and leather armor. The armor did not fit a skeleton. I tied one piece around my forearm and kept the knife. One kill gave me 2 levels, 2 weapons, and a working theory. Monsters trusted obvious weakness. I had enough obvious weakness to build a career. Every weaker creature nearby was already dead. The next target needed a dirtier plan. Hours later, I found a level 7 red-eye wolf near a cliff passage. It stood 4 levels above me and weighed twice as much. A fair fight would make me a chew toy with excellent posture. I still carried the supply bag my party had forced on me. Their favorite humiliation became my first proper weapon. I filled the bag with monster scraps and placed it beside the drop. Then I lay near it with my ribs turned upward. The red-eye wolf approached slowly. Its glowing eyes checked the bait, and then my body. I waited until one paw touched the strap, then I stabbed the paw. The wolf lunged. I rolled beneath its chest, cut the rear leg, and ran along the edge. It recovered fast and slammed me across the stone. 3 ribs broke loose. The wolf pinned my pelvis and snapped at my skull. I jammed the goblin knife between its teeth. The blade broke, but the bite missed. I hooked the bag strap around its neck and rolled toward open air. The wolf dragged me across the ledge. I released the strap and let it surge forward. Then I kicked the wounded leg as it landed. The stone beneath us cracked. We both dropped. I caught the cliff with one hand. The wolf caught my ankle in its jaws. I drove the broken blade through the soft gap beneath its jaw. The wolf released me. It struck a lower shelf and stopped moving. The level notice arrived while I hung from one hand. Gravity had done most of the work. Gravity was not demanding a reward share, so I approved the partnership. Level 5. Evolution available. I climbed onto the ledge and accepted. My bones heated. Dark tissue wrapped around them. Muscles formed, skin closed, and blood filled new veins. For one hopeful moment, the system seemed to be rebuilding a human. Then the species line changed. Ghoul. Gray skin. Black claws. Teeth designed for meat. So much for the miracle upgrade. I looked less like a skeleton and more like something humans killed faster. Then the new ability appeared. Regeneration. A crack across my ribs sealed. The torn ankle rebuilt. The hand burned by friction returned to full movement. My level 5 body was stronger and harder to keep damaged. The next evolution threshold was level 20. That number kept me from hating the new face. Ghoul was one more step toward level 20. A level 5 giant rat burst from a drainage tunnel. It bit through my side before I finished reading the status. I buried both claws in its shoulders. The rat twisted and tore the wound wider. Warm blood ran down my hip. I had missed blood more than dignity allowed me to admit. The rat slammed me against the wall. I let its teeth stay inside my body. Regeneration tightened the wound around its head. Then I drove one claw through its throat. The rat died still attached to me. Regeneration closed the hole in my side. Then, my new stomach cramped. The body had rebuilt hunger too. I stared at the giant rat. The giant rat remained dead and unhelpful. Survival won the argument. I ate enough to stop shaking. My first evolution gave me skin, blood, claws, healing, and a sewer menu. Every jackpot in that dungeon came with a bill. Over the next several days, I hunted through the upper routes. At an underground stream, smaller monsters rushed from both banks. I let the current carry the first into a broken grate. Its body jammed the opening. The others collided with it and lost their footing. I climbed over the pile and finished them before they stood. A blade trap later took 2 fingers. Regeneration returned them, but the mana cost sharpened my hunger. Then a level 13 armored orc blocked the next arch. Its metal chest ignored my claws. The orc swung for my neck. I ducked and cut the rear knee. The armor stopped the blade, so the orc laughed. It attacked the same side again. I left a half-healed shoulder wound visible. The orc aimed for it a third time. I caught the axe head inside my shoulder. Regeneration clamped the wound around the metal. The orc pulled, but my body held the weapon. I dragged it off balance and tore the axe away. The next swing belonged to me. The orc fell. The kill carried me to level 14. I took its axe and followed human voices toward the upper tunnels. Kayla walked beneath me with 2 adventurers. Cold gathered around every arrowhead in her bow. She had entered the dungeon looking for me. My first instinct was to call out. My second noticed her companions scanning every shadow for monsters. I was exactly what they were hunting. A loose stone clicked under my claw. Kayla spun and fired. I dropped from the arch with both hands open. The ghoul face ruined the harmless presentation. An ice arrow punched through my shoulder and pinned me to the wall. Her second arrow froze my right leg. Her third aimed directly between my eyes. She moved faster than I remembered. Pride hit me at the worst possible time. One companion shouted for her to finish the ghoul. Kayla drew the string to her cheek. I could have thrown the axe. I could have rushed while regeneration repaired the shoulder. Instead, I lowered both claws. Hurting her would defeat the reason I kept moving. I forced air through a throat that hated human speech. Kayla! The name came out rough and broken. Her fingers loosened. The arrow missed my skull and shattered against the wall. Kayla stared at me. How do you know my name? One companion raised his sword. Kayla shifted her bow across his path. I tapped the wall twice with one claw, 2 short knocks. When we were children, that meant danger behind you. Kayla's eyes widened. A roar rolled through the tunnels below us. The frozen floor shook. I pointed toward the deeper passage and tapped twice again. Kayla did not trust me. She believed the warning. That crack in her certainty was enough. Her party moved deeper toward the roar. I tore the arrow from my shoulder and waited for regeneration to free my leg. Then I followed above them. My sister had come looking for a dead man. Instead, she found a monster who still remembered how to warn her. The roar beneath Kayla's party belonged to a level 23 ogre. Monsters that strong belonged much deeper. Finding one near the upper roots confirmed a dungeon disaster. The normal floor order had collapsed. Strong creatures were moving upward, and every exit could change without warning. Kayla was below level 20. Her companions were weaker. I was level 14 with regeneration, 1 good axe, and the social standing of roadkill. The ogre stepped from the lower passage carrying a club thicker than Kayla's waist. Dried blood covered one shoulder. A broken adventurer's shield hung from spikes along its belt. Kayla saw the shield and shifted her feet. Her companions saw it too. One checked a side corridor twice. The other touched the escape charm at his throat. Excellent. Nothing builds confidence like teammates preparing to become memories. The ogre attacked first. Kayla's swordsman rushed the knee while the mage fired into its face. The ogre blocked both with the club. It kicked the swordsman across the room. Then it backhanded the mage into a pillar. Kayla fired 3 ice arrows into its chest. The shafts cracked against muscle. The ogre grinned stupidly. I genuinely do not know why monsters grin before making bad decisions. It never improves their odds. Kayla planted her feet and pulled Cold into the bow. Frost climbed both arms. She needed time for 1 full power shot. Keep it facing away from me. 10 seconds. Her companions exchanged a glance. I crawled along the ceiling beam above them. The swordsman whispered first. When she starts charging, use your escape skill. The mage nodded. Let the ice slow it. There it was, the same cowardice that had killed me, wearing 2 cheaper faces. The ogre charged. Kayla's companions dodged once and threw weak attacks. They waited until the monster committed, then both disappeared through separate bursts of light. Kayla heard the sound behind her. She did not turn. The ice around her bow condensed into a white spearhead. She released at the ogre's chest. The ogre twisted. The blast missed its heart, but tore off 1 arm. Half its shoulder froze solid. That should have been the opening. Instead, the one-armed ogre crossed the room and swung its club. Kayla raised the bow too late. The impact threw her into the wall. She hit the floor and stopped moving. The deserters were already gone. I dropped from the ceiling. The ogre saw a smaller monster and laughed. Apparently losing one arm had not improved its judgment. I pulled the axe back and aimed for the damaged side. The ogre's first swing shattered the stone beside me. I stayed close enough that the club could not build full speed. The second swing caught my forearm and broke it. Regeneration started repairing the bone. The ogre grabbed the same arm and bit down. Its teeth severed the limb at the elbow. The body fell one direction. My arm stayed in its mouth. The ogre leaned back to swallow. That exposed its throat. I jumped from the frozen shoulder and buried my remaining claws into the neck. The ogre tried to crush me against the wall. I held on while regeneration closed the stump. The beast's one useful hand clawed at my back. I bit through the damaged throat. Blood filled my mouth. The ogre collapsed beneath me. The level pulse carried me to 18. My missing arm began rebuilding from the shoulder. Bone extended first. Muscle wrapped around it. Gray skin closed over new fingers. By the time the body stopped shaking, the arm was whole. The repair consumed enough mana to make hunger tear through my stomach. Kayla remained unconscious. I checked her breathing and the swelling along her ribs. The club had not crushed her chest. She needed human healers, not a ghoul explaining family history through wet growls. I carried her toward the upper route. Several corridors later, human voices approached from the exit side. A rescue party rounded the corner and saw a monster holding an unconscious woman. Their weapons rose immediately. I placed Kayla on the floor and backed away. Then I lifted the engraved dagger she had given me years earlier. The old message along its blade still carried our shared joke. I added 2 fresh tap marks beside the engraving. Then I set the dagger across her hands. The rescue party charged. I staged one threatening step toward Kayla. They rushed between us exactly as planned. I retreated into the darkness while they protected her. Publicly, strangers had chased away a ghoul. Privately, Kayla would wake holding proof. From a side passage, I watched the healers stabilize her. Kayla opened her eyes and immediately searched the corridor. One adventurer told her the ghoul had almost attacked. She found the dagger instead. Her thumb touched the 2 fresh marks. The message told her I had reached her. It also told her to wait. Tears reached her eyes, but her breathing settled. My sister still could not follow me safely. I still could not stand beside her as a human. So I moved deeper and hunted for 2 more levels. Every kill fed the same ugly cycle. Regeneration kept the ghoul body alive. The ghoul body demanded meat. I ate what I killed and promised myself the next evolution would improve the menu. At level 18, ordinary monsters gave almost nothing. I needed something stronger. A level 21 gargoyle found me first. Its stone body ignored the axe edge. Fire poured from its mouth and burned the path behind me. I struck the ribs, jaw, and wing joints. Every blow left scratches instead of wounds. The gargoyle answered by throwing me through a pillar. Regeneration repaired the ribs. The mana cost shortened every future disguise I did not have yet. I ran toward a cliff passage. The gargoyle followed on foot, saving its wings for the final lunge. Fire scorched the stone behind me. At the drop, I looked back and pretended to panic. Then, I let my heels slip. The gargoyle launched after me. I fell over the edge. It folded its wings and dove for the easy kill. 2 body lengths below the rim, I drove both claws into a crack. I swung beneath the ledge. The gargoyle passed above me. It opened its wings too late and struck a lower shelf face first. The impact broke one wing. I dropped onto its back before it rose. My claws found the softer gap beneath its jaw. The gargoyle bucked and tried to burn me against the stone. I pushed its damaged face over the shelf. It caught my wrist and dragged me with it. Regeneration locked my grip around the rock. I kicked the cracked wing and tore free. The gargoyle fell the rest of the way. The level notice arrived before the echo faded. Level 20! Evolution available! I accepted while clinging to the cliff. Apparently, I enjoyed transforming in terrible locations. My body softened first. Ghoul muscle loosened, bones shifted, and skin moved as if it had forgotten one fixed shape. When the pain ended, a new species line appeared, shapeshifter. The reward beneath it was masquerade. Masquerade gave me a pale human form and clear speech. The rule was expensive. It consumed 1 mana point every 10 minutes. Regeneration used the same mana pool. My current reserve gave me roughly 4 hours while uninjured. Every repaired wound shortened that time. Human access and survival were fighting over the same fuel. I activated it anyway. Gray skin warmed, claws shortened into fingers. My face settled into something close to the man I remembered. It looked paler, sharper, and exhausted. I touched my jaw and spoke. Cole Mercer. The voice sounded human. I laughed once, then I stopped because the face laughed back like 3 weeks without sleep. Still, people might hesitate before stabbing it. I climbed toward the upper route to test the disguise. A lone adventurer rounded the next corner. He saw ragged clothes, bare feet, and dark blood at my collar. You hurt? I'm fine. My voice flickered on the final word. The human tone dropped into a ghoul rasp. His hand moved toward his sword. Then my left hand started changing. 2 fingers lengthened. A claw pushed through one nail. I hid the hand under my torn cloak. Smoke, fire-breathing gargoyle below. That part was true, which helped. The adventurer heard a distant roar and chose self-preservation. He hurried past. The stranger learned only that I looked sick. I learned one cough, claw, or wound could expose everything. Human society was going to be exhausting. I let Masquerade drop after his footsteps faded. My first human conversation lasted 8 words and nearly ended in murder. Socially, I was thriving. A second gargoyle found me before my mana recovered. It followed the scent of its dead kind. I shifted fully into the shapeshifter body. The larger form slipped beneath one wing and tore through the softer joint. The gargoyle screamed. More answered from the tunnels. A whole horde poured into the passage. I ran toward the next bend. Human voices waited ahead. Gargoyles filled the route behind me. My fragile human disguise was about to collide with an armed party. At the next bend, a human party raised weapons while gargoyles filled the passage behind me. The group had 3 members. Frank Rourke stood in front with a sword and battered shield. Gideon Price held a bow at the rear. Shelley Schultz carried a short blade and several magic stones. All 3 saw the shapeshifter body before Masquerade stabilized. Gideon's arrow pointed directly at my throat. Monster! I raised both hands and forced Masquerade across the body. The claws shortened. The pale human face returned. One mask-like marking remained along my cheek before fading. Gideon noticed it. Of course he did. Suspicious archers survive by ruining convenient lies. Frank kept his shield between us. Name and party. Cole Mercer. No party. My voice stayed human this time. The approaching horde screamed behind me. I pointed toward the passage. Questions after the flying rocks. Frank looked past me and saw the first gargoyle turn the corner. That ended the introduction. We moved together because the dungeon had removed every sensible alternative. Frank took the narrow front. Gideon fired into wing joints. Shelley cracked a heat stone against the wall and flooded the passage with light. I stayed in human form and used the fallen creatures as cover. One gargoyle broke through Frank's guard. I caught its wrist with a partially changing hand. The claws appeared for 1 heartbeat. Gideon saw them. His next arrow almost chose me instead of the monster. Shelley stepped across his firing line. He is helping. He is changing. Then be grateful he changed the useful part. Shelley stabbed beneath the gargoyle's wing. I threw it into Frank's shield. Frank drove the sword through its mouth. The horde kept coming. We reached a split passage with only one stable route. I knew the left tunnel ended at a collapsed gate. The right route climbed toward the boss chamber. Gideon wanted the left. I told them it was sealed. He asked how I knew. I tried running there. From what? I looked at the gargoyles behind us. Current evidence. Shelley laughed despite the danger. She grabbed my sleeve and pulled me toward the right route. Her hand on my arm made the disguise feel suddenly fragile. Masquerade shared mana with every repair. The recent burns had already shortened the timer. If the form failed under her fingers, kindness could become an execution. We reached a stone choke point and turned together. Frank blocked the first gargoyle. Gideon dropped one from the ceiling. Shelley shattered another heat stone beneath the pack. I kicked the lead creature into the fire and used its body as a barrier. The remaining gargoyles collided behind it. Frank collapsed the cracked arch with one shield strike. Stone buried the route. For a few breaths, nobody attacked anyone. Gideon used the quiet poorly. Your eyes changed during the fight. Lighting problem. Your hand grew claws. Stress problem. Your excuses are terrible. Social problem. Shelley studied the blood drying at my collar. Then she offered me a healing potion. I smelled enough unfamiliar ingredients to distrust it. No, thank you. Gideon's suspicion sharpened. Shelley lowered the bottle instead of pushing. You can travel with us until the exit. Her tone carried cautious kindness instead of an order. Since Revive, no human outside Kayla had offered protection to this body. The warmth felt foreign and dangerous. For 1 second, I considered accepting. Then a pulse of fire moved under the skin near my wrist. Masquerade was already slipping. I pulled the sleeve free. I work better alone? Shelley smiled slightly. That sounded rehearsed. I have extensive experience being difficult. Frank advised her to let me go. Gideon agreed for completely different reasons. I disappeared into a side passage before the disguise could expose me. Shelley watched until the darkness swallowed the route. Her small act of kindness followed me farther than it should have. I told myself their mission was not my problem. Then I heard them discuss the dungeon boss. The Gargoyle King had escaped its proper floor and occupied the central chamber. If they killed it, the upper disaster might collapse. If they failed, the horde would continue climbing toward populated exits. I knew exactly what a level 30 stone boss would do to their party. I kept moving away. The protector instinct I had carried as an adventurer pulled in the opposite direction. Minutes later, I doubled back. Outside the boss chamber, I watched from a broken gallery. The Gargoyle King stood twice as tall as Frank. Stone armor covered every joint except the eyes and mouth. A black sword burned in one hand. The sensible plan lasted 6 seconds. Frank held the front. Shelley circled for the flank. Gideon fired at the exposed eye. The first arrow glanced away. The Gargoyle King released an inferno flare. Fire stripped heat protection from Frank's armor. He still reached the head and landed one heavy strike. Gideon's second arrow entered the damaged eye. The boss roared. It backhanded Frank across the chamber. Shelley cut the rear knee and found stone beneath the gap. The burning sword caught her guard and threw her beside Frank. Gideon fired while retreating. A winged strike slammed him into the wall. All three stopped moving. The Gargoyle King raised its sword over Shelley. I had one clean choice: remain hidden and keep my disguise safe. Or protect the people I had once sworn to defend. Humanity won before fear finished speaking. I dropped from the gallery and caught the descending wrist. The sword stopped inches above Shelley. The Gargoyle King looked down at the pale stranger under its arm. Then my face flickered, one eye darkened, the skin across my hand became gray and clawed. The boss recognized another monster. Good. That meant its attention leapt Shelley. I twisted the wrist and drove the burning blade into the floor. The Gargoyle King struck my chest with its free hand. The blow opened my torso and threw me across the chamber. Regeneration started closing the wound. Masquerade drained from the same reserve. The face stayed human by becoming more expensive every second. I attacked the damaged eye. The boss protected it and exposed the other side. I cut beneath the jaw. The stone edge turned the weapon. The Gargoyle King ignited its whole body. Flare vortex rolled across the chamber. Heat pushed me away and burned every path forward. Regeneration repaired the skin while Masquerade tried to keep it human. The two abilities ate mana like divorced parents fighting over one wallet. The boss crossed the fire and swung. I raised my arm. The human limb would not survive. Something inside the shapeshifter body answered first. My forearm expanded beneath the disguise. Gray muscle hardened. Black claws formed around the flaming sword. Partial transformation! The new hand stopped the blade. Fire carved through the palm, but regeneration closed around the metal. The Gargoyle King pulled. I held it in place. Gideon woke behind the boss. His arrow struck a cracked support above the chamber. A slab of stone dropped onto the Gargoyle King's head. The impact widened the eye damage. Shelley forced herself upright and drove a blade into the wounded joint. Frank rose last and hit the knee with his shield. The boss stumbled. I released the sword and drove my transformed claws into the ruined eye. It threw me away. The flaming weapon landed beyond reach. My sword had broken against the stone chest. The Gargoyle King charged for one final strike. I dropped Masquerade from the punching arm. The shapeshifter limb expanded with every remaining reserve. I stepped through the swing and hit the damaged skull. Stone shattered. The Gargoyle King collapsed. The level pulse hit 4 times. Level 24. My wounds demanded mana immediately. Masquerade showed only 2 mana points remaining. That meant less than 20 minutes of human appearance. Shelley approached with relief across her face. I looked at the boss crystal, the grateful party, and the exit. Then I ran. Show up, defeat the boss, refuse to elaborate, and leave. A flawless social policy. Gideon shouted after me. Frank stopped him from chasing. Shelley called my name once. I did not turn. The Gargoyle King's body hid the worst of partial transformation. They had seen enough to know I was abnormal. They had not seen enough to name the species. I reached the exit before Masquerade collapsed. The party carried the boss crystal to the local guild. Later, Frank told the room an unknown pale adventurer killed the boss. A skeptic laughed until Dean Shaw placed the crystal on the counter. The laughter stopped. Gideon described the claws and suspicious face. Frank described the rescue. Shelley described both, then somehow made the story sound better. The crowd turned from the skeptic toward the crystal. An anonymous boss killer became the city's favorite rumor. Frank protected my share of the reward. Shelley accepted extra money only because she needed it elsewhere. She planned to give everything to the orphanage that raised her. That orphanage stood in Ashfield. Ashfield was a ruined city trapped beneath another dungeon disaster. The Iron Dragons controlled its streets while officials looked away. A lawless city offered cover, monsters, and another evolution route. It also placed Shelley on the same road. Kayla heard the boss killer rumor through returning adventurers. The pale face, impossible healing, and abandoned reward matched her private clues. The rumor did not close the distance between us. It gave her a direction. I went to Ashfield because nobody there asked questions. Shelley went because too many people had stopped expecting help. By the time we met again, the city's rulers had decided our value. Ashfield's guild counted 500 gold across the counter for every magic stone I had collected. The stones were worth several times more in the capital. The clerk knew it. I knew it. The armed men watching the counter knew it too. The clerk said Ashfield did not ask where suspicious sellers found their goods. That was local language for accept the theft and remain alive. I took the coins. The exact stack remained visible when Jeff Pike approached. Jeff wore the Iron Dragon badge like Cruelty had issued him a uniform. He planted one hand across the money. The city charges a visitor tax. Interesting. I pulled the stack under his fingers. The visitor declines. Jeff drew his sword. The guild customers looked away before the first swing. That told me robbery inside the building was normal. I stepped aside and caught his wrist. His blade struck the counter. I twisted until his fingers opened. Then I kicked the sword across the room. Jeff stared at the empty hand. You do not know who controls Ashfield, someone with poor hiring standards. I left while the room tried not to laugh. Jeff's wounded pride followed me through the door. The corrupt payout disappeared almost immediately. A rusty dagger cost 240 gold. A shabby robe cost 60. One night at an unsafe inn cost 110. That left 90 gold and several excellent financial regrets. The innkeeper handed me a key with a bent tooth. The room had one window, one chair, and 3 separate drafts. Luxury had abandoned the district before the officials did. I hid the remaining coins and listened through the wall. Jeff entered the room below and complained about me to another enforcer. The answer told him to stop embarrassing the faction. Jeff promised he would make me pay anyway. Petty villains are wonderfully consistent. The next morning, I walked through the market under masquerade. The human form held longer after level 24. Regeneration still spent the same reserve. Every injury remained a countdown against my face. Shelley found me before I found useful work. She recognized the pale hair and permanent mask immediately. I recognized the person most likely to ask dangerous questions, so I turned and walked faster. Shelley followed. I entered a side street. She followed. I climbed a low wall. She used the proper stairs and arrived first. The dead end had betrayed me with excellent urban planning. Shelley folded her arms. You ran away before I thanked you. I had an appointment. With a wall? It arrived early. She asked for my name. I should have used Cole Mercer. Instead, panic discovered creativity. Cole Clank. Shelley repeated the alias slowly. That is the worst false name I have ever heard. It is real. She pointed at the mask. Your face looks mysterious. Your voice sounds dangerous. Then you introduce yourself like a dropped cooking pot. In my defense, you chased me into a wall. Shelley stepped closer. You run from every woman who thanks you? Only pretty strangers carrying knives. Her eyebrows rose. So you noticed I was pretty. I had walked directly into that one. Man, I was cooked. I noticed the knife. Shelley smiled. Coward. Stalker. Terrible liar. Dangerous woman. The volley ended when bare feet struck the street behind us. A child stumbled into the alley. She wore a torn orphanage shirt and someone else's blood. Shelley's smile vanished. The child grabbed her coat. They came for us. Iron Dragon enforcers had demanded children for labor camps. The caretaker offered himself instead. One child fought back and got thrown through a bench. The caretaker grabbed a spear. The enforcers broke it and beat him in front of everyone. The girl escaped through the kitchen. No joke survived that report. Shelley ran beside me through the market. There are at least 4. Then we stopped 4. You were trying to stay hidden. They threatened children. That was the entire calculation. Inside the orphanage, the caretaker remained on his knees. His face was swollen. One arm hung badly. Children crowded against the rear wall. 2 enforcers blocked the doors. Jeff stood near the windows, nursing the wrist I had twisted. A taller swordsman held his blade above the caretaker's neck. The caretaker lifted his head. Take me. Leave them. The swordsman pressed the edge lower. Tell the children to walk outside quietly. The caretaker looked back at them. Do your worst. They will remember I chose them. The sword started down. I threw the rusty dagger. It struck the blade sideways and knocked the execution stroke into the floor. Every child looked toward the entrance. Shelley stepped through first with her short blade drawn. I entered beside her and pulled my dagger from the wood. Jeff's shock lasted half a breath. Then wounded pride took control again. He pointed at me. That is the thief from the guild. I looked at Shelley. Apparently keeping my money was theft. Ashfield accounting. Jeff charged while the taller swordsman moved between me and the caretaker. I met Jeff's first swing with the rusty dagger. His sword shoved mine down. I stepped inside his reach and drove my shoulder into his chest. Jeff staggered across a table. You look even weaker up close. I cut across his armor and forced him backward. Then losing must feel terrible. The taller enforcer intercepted my next step. His name was Ryan Cross. He ranked higher inside the Iron Dragons and could support the attitude. Our blades touched once. The impact numbed my wrist. Ryan examined the dagger and laughed. 240 gold? The seller promised emotional durability. Ryan's lightning sword filled the room with blue current. The first strike split my dagger. The second burned through the robe and opened my shoulder. Regeneration closed the cut under the cloth. Ryan noticed the healing movement. His expression sharpened. What are you? Currently disappointed in the purchase. Behind us, Jeff tried to reach my blind side. Shelley intercepted him. Her blade caught his sword before it reached my back. Jeff had more raw strength. Shelley had better training and a reason to stay standing. She drove him away from the children. Ryan attacked again. Lightning tracked along the floor and cut off the exit. I kept Masquerade active because the room was full of witnesses. The disguise consumed mana while regeneration repaired each graze. Ryan understood the pressure and smiled. He thought every wound shortened the fight in his favor. He was correct about the cost. He was wrong about how I used it. Ryan thrust the lightning sword through my abdomen. The blade emerged from my back. The children screamed. Ryan leaned close. "Your trick ends here!" I closed both hands around his wrist. Regeneration tightened the wound around the sword. New muscle trapped the blade inside my body. Ryan pulled. The flesh held. His confidence disappeared one finger at a time. I let partial transformations spread beneath the robe. The arm holding his wrist became gray and heavy. Claws locked around the joint. Ryan tried releasing the weapon. I pulled him forward with the sword still buried inside me. Then the transformed fist rose beneath his jaw. The uppercut lifted him off the floor. Lightning went out before he landed. His sword remained trapped inside my healing body. I pulled it free and threw it beside him. The wound closed. Every child stared at the unbroken stomach. One whispered that the weak man had caught a sword with himself. Another corrected her. He caught lightning with himself. The distinction was important to them. Jeff saw Ryan unconscious and chose survival. He kicked a powder vial beneath Shelley's feet. Green smoke filled the room. Shelley covered the nearest children. Jeff escaped through the window. I could have followed. The caretaker was bleeding. Ryan could wake, and frightened children needed doors secured. Jeff's future remained annoyingly funded. Shelley bound Ryan while I helped the caretaker sit. One child touched the repaired robe at my stomach. "Did it hurt?" "Very much." "You did not scream." "I was busy looking impressive." That answer satisfied nobody, including me. The caretaker thanked us and refused to abandon the children. Shelley offered the remaining reward from the Gargoyle King. He accepted enough for medicine, then pushed the rest back. Moving everyone to the capital would cost more than the orphanage owned. Staying meant Iron Dragon retaliation. Leaving meant roads, food, and housing they could not afford. Saving one room had not solved the city. It had made the larger problem impossible to ignore. Shelley told me about Calamity Hollow. The dungeon disaster had strangled Ashfield for years. A capital party of 20 experienced adventurers entered and never returned. The kingdom stopped sending people. The Iron Dragons used the danger as an excuse to control labor, trade, and protection. If the Hollow disappeared, their excuse weakened. If the Iron Dragons disappeared, the city could rebuild. I had come for levels and cover. Now the mission included monsters, tyrants, and an orphanage bill. Apparently, my quiet life was developing hobbies. Later, I learned Jeff carried the orphanage humiliation to Garrett Knox. Garrett led the Iron Dragons and stood at level 50. He listened while Jeff blamed Ryan, Shelley, children, smoke, and architecture. Then Garrett struck Jeff hard enough to put him on the floor. Candace Reed reported kingdom adventurers moving through Ashfield. Garrett ordered his people to watch every road into Calamity Hollow. He did not want the dungeon cleared. I did not know that part yet. I only knew the Hollow offered monsters strong enough to reach my next evolution. Shelley wanted to enter too. I told her I worked alone. She reminded me how well that policy handled walls. Before we could settle it, a monster attacked civilians near the Eastern Road. Mara Quinn reached it first. Holy light covered her sword. I reached the fight one breath later. The dying creature made its final choice. It turned from Mara and lunged toward a child. The dying monster crossed the street toward the child before Mara could turn. My human form was too far away. I could keep Masquerade and watch the child die, or I could reveal the body everyone already feared. Memories of my parents ended the argument. Monsters had taken them while I was too weak to help. I dropped Masquerade. The shapeshifter body expanded across the street. Longer legs crossed the distance first. One transformed arm caught the monster inches from the child. The claws closed around its throat. I drove it into the road and ended the attack. The child was safe. The crowd stopped cheering. Mara's holy blade turned toward me. Someone shouted that the rescuer was a monster. Another person lifted a stone. Fear spread faster than gratitude. The first stone struck my shoulder. The second hit the mask. Mara warned everyone to move back. Her warning named me as a dangerous shapeshifter. That made the crowd more afraid, not less. I could have stayed and argued. The body standing over a dead creature would win no debate. I moved toward the alley before fear became a stampede. People threw stones and insults until I passed the market. The saved girl ran after me. She stepped between my back and the next stone. One adult lowered his arm because hitting her would expose the lie. "He saved me," she shouted. The crowd hesitated. Mara did not lower her sword. She had seen darkness around my mana and a monster body under a human face. Her suspicion was reasonable. Her conclusion was incomplete. Captain Elaine Hart arrived before Mara followed. The captain stopped the pursuit. She said their larger mission involved the red-haired person behind abnormal dungeon disasters. Starting a street battle with the creature who saved a child would help nobody. Authority did not make the crowd accept me. It only prevented one more fight. I left Ashfield through the eastern ruins. The girl's defense followed me longer than the stones. Shelley found the damaged robe near the road. She did not find me. By then, I had already entered Calamity Hollow alone. Inside the dungeon I could use the full shapeshifter body without pretending. That freedom should have felt good. Instead, the crowd's faces followed me through every tunnel. I focused on the next measurable target. Level 50. The Hollow's monsters were strong enough to pay. A pack of bonehounds attacked near the first descent. I tore through them and reached deeper corridors. A giant centipede forced me across a collapsing bridge. Its shell-resisted claws until I used the bridge chain around its neck. The fall broke both the monster and the route behind me. The dungeon rewarded progress with worse directions. I marked turns by cutting arrows into the walls. Several hours later, the marks began pointing toward one another. The maze had shifted. A monster could change routes after I passed. My careful map became abstract decoration. I threw a broken sword through a side arch to test the chamber. The blade vanished into darkness. A web line snapped tight around it. Then, the entire floor dropped. I landed inside a pit covered with giant spider silk. Small spiders flooded from the walls. The shapeshifter body killed them quickly. Each corpse pulled more silk across my legs. The trap was not trying to overpower me. It was building a larger restraint one thread at a time. I climbed the wall before the web reached my waist. A heavier line struck my chest and pulled me backward. The owner descended from the ceiling. Bloodthread was a giant demon spider with red cords instead of ordinary silk. Each thread tightened when it tasted blood. The monster drove one hooked leg through my shoulder. Regeneration closed around the wound. That gave Bloodthread more blood to follow. Excellent. My best ability had joined the enemy team. I cut the first thread. 2 more wrapped the arm. The cords pulled me toward the spider's mouth. I transformed the trapped arm completely. The larger claws could not break the tightening web. Bloodthread pulled harder. I saw one option that the monster did not expect. I severed my own arm above the elbow. The trapped limb disappeared into the web. My body fell free. Bloodthread recoiled with the arm and lost balance. I landed beneath its chest. The remaining claws tore through the softer underside. The spider stabbed downward. I rolled between the legs and used the fallen sword from the pit. The blade entered the wound I had opened. Bloodthread tried dragging me back with fresh cords. My missing arm had already begun rebuilding. Bone reached from the stump. A new hand formed around one web line. Regeneration turned the loss into a second grip. I pulled the monster down and drove the sword through its head. Bloodthread collapsed across the pit. The level pulse carried me to 33. My new arm finished forming. The repair emptied most of my mana. I lay beneath a dead spider while hunger argued for another terrible meal. The meal won. I ate enough monster flesh to restore the body. The taste confirmed that evolution had not improved cuisine. I left the pit and continued through the maze. The wall marks failed again. I started marking the ceiling instead. A burrowing creature changed the ceiling. Calamity Hollow had strong opinions about navigation. I hunted until level 37. Then the available food became more urgent than the route. I sat near a dead spider and cut edible pieces away from the venom sacs. Human footsteps approached. I activated Masquerade with half-restored mana. The pale face returned while I still held spider meat. Shelley rounded the corner carrying a route map and several magic stones. She stopped! I stopped! The spider leg remained between us. Shelley looked at the meat, then she looked at me. Please tell me that is medicine. High-protein medicine. That is a leg. Portable medicine. She sat beside me instead of leaving. That choice landed harder than the public stones. Shelley removed dried food from her pack and handed it over. I accepted before pride could sabotage nutrition. You followed me into the hollow. You entered alone after saving my orphanage and a child. That does not answer the terrible decision. I learned from you. Shelley carried a map built from the notes of people who had entered before us. Every safe route had been purchased with someone else's injury or death. She had used her remaining money for gear, powder, and heat stones. Her goal was the same as mine now. Kill the boss and end the disaster. I told her the map could shift. She showed me corrections written beside collapsed routes. I told her the monsters would target the weaker fighter. She showed me decoys and powders designed for exactly that. I told her Masquerade had a timer. She looked at the spider meal. Then stop wasting human time chewing that. Shelley had prepared for every objection except my fear of losing another person. She saw through that one without a tool. You came alone so nobody else would die, she said. That is not noble, it is inefficient. Those can overlap. I asked why she needed the hollow cleared. Ashfield was the city that raised her. The orphanage had taught her to fight because nobody else came. The 20 missing capital adventurers had carried hope into the dungeon. She refused to let their knowledge die unused. I agreed to the partnership. The decision immediately created a new problem. The map showed the route toward the boss. A fresh wall now blocked it. Behind us, demon spiders filled the passage. Shelley lifted a pouch of seed powder. Follow my call. I raised the stolen sword. Try not to make me regret teamwork, you already regret everything. The demon spiders charged. The demon spiders filled the tunnel behind Shelly. She scattered seed powder into the air. The first wave entered the cloud and lost its vision. Spiders crashed into walls, each other, and the blocked route. I used the pile as a ramp. The shapeshifter body crossed above their claws. I landed behind the pack and attacked from the rear. Shelly ignited one edge of the powder cloud with a heat stone. Fire drove the survivors toward my sword. The fight paid another level and opened a crack behind the false wall. We forced the route wide enough to enter. Shelly's map became useful only when the dungeon tried to disprove it. One marked safe chamber contained a nest. Another empty corridor flooded with venom. Each failure revealed where the monsters had moved. We stopped following the map as a promise. We used it as evidence of what had changed. Shelly carried the losses of the people who made it. I carried the body best suited to survive their mistakes. The partnership worked better than either of us admitted. Then Arachne found us. The level 42 monster had a human-shaped upper body and a spider lower half. Razor claws covered both arms. One strike sent me through a stone wall. Shelly pulled me upright before the debris settled. Second strongest creature in the hollow. Wonderful! I was worried the day lacked structure. Arachne fired web blades across the chamber. Shelly warned me to stay close. The monster's vision weakened near its own legs. I moved beneath the body. The first claw opened my back. Regeneration closed the wound while I cut 2 legs. Arachne leaped away and filled the chamber with web lines. Shelly cracked a firestone against the nearest cord. Flame raced toward the monster. Arachne severed the burning line before it reached the body. That exposed the left side. I threw the sword through one leg joint. Shelly followed with a second heat stone. Fire covered the open wound. The monster collapsed toward me. I used partial transformation and caught the falling mass. The claws drove through both shoulders. Regeneration held the arms together long enough to move. I turned and slammed Arachne into the burning web. Shelly cut the damaged human torso. I finished the head. The victory pushed me to level 40. It also drained enough mana to make Masquerade visibly unstable. The human face flickered across the monster body. Shelly watched the change. She did not reach for her weapon. She handed me water. That was becoming a dangerous pattern. The map marked one final chamber beyond Arachne's nest. Ouroboros ruled there. The level 52 devil monkey had killed knights and adventurers for years. It moved with impossible speed. The useful limitation was direction. Ouroboros could accelerate in straight lines but turned poorly at full speed. Shelly knew its poison breath, heat sense, and regeneration. I knew how to make an arrogant monster commit. We prepared 3 counters. Seed powder for the mouth. A heat stone as a false target. My body for every part of the plan that remained terrible. Shelly wanted a larger role. I told her the plan already gave her the dangerous objects. She said I was keeping the dangerous monster for myself. That was technically correct. At the boss chamber, Ouroboros stood taller than the Gargoyle King. Black fur covered a body built like moving stone. A snake-like tail struck the floor behind it. Red eyes followed heat instead of ordinary motion. The boss roared. The pressure alone forced Shelly back 1 step. I stepped forward. Straight lines. Shelly opened the powder pouch. Bad turning! Ouroboros launched. I moved in a zigzag across the chamber. Its claws missed and carved trenches through the wall. The second charge came faster. I changed direction at the final breath. Ouroboros buried both hands in stone. I attacked the leg. The sword cut fur and stopped against muscle. Shelly jumped onto its back and drove her blade downward. The point barely entered. Ouroboros released a shockwave. Both of us flew across the chamber. Shelly hit the floor hard enough to lose the blade. I told her the wound across my chest was minor. Regeneration repaired it while I spoke. The mana reserve disagreed with the word minor. I considered using the full monster body. Shelly had seen pieces, not the complete shapeshifter. If she panicked, communication would fail inside a boss fight. So I kept Masquerade and used only local changes beneath the clothing. Ouroboros targeted Shelly next. I crossed the line and blocked the claws. The impact broke one arm. Regeneration returned movement while the boss kept chasing her. That obsession created the opening. I cut the snake-like tail. Ouroboros turned toward me and exposed its back. Shelly recovered her blade and attacked the rear leg. The boss began charging Devil's Poison Breath. Black vapor filled its mouth. Shelly threw the seed powder directly inside. Ouroboros inhaled the pouch. The breath collapsed into violent coughing. Its eyes clouded. The monster switched to heat detection. Shelly activated the prepared stone across the chamber. A false heat source flared near the wall. Ouroboros charged it. The claws entered stone again. Shelly cut one leg while I severed another joint. Ouroboros fell. I used transformed fangs on the damaged thigh. The bite removed enough flesh to weaken the stance. For one moment, victory looked close. Then every wound began closing. Legs straightened. The tail rebuilt. Muscle pushed the blades out. Ouroboros' regeneration was stronger than mine at full reserve. The boss rose and struck me into the floor. Stone broke beneath my back. Shelly shouted my name. Ouroboros raised both arms for the finish. I rolled beneath the blow and caught one wrist with the sword. The blade almost snapped. Shelly threw the last heatstone behind its head. Ouroboros turned toward the false target. I saw a pulse beneath the chest. The regeneration centered around a core. I drove the sword through the opening. Ouroboros grabbed my shoulders and pulled me closer. The blade entered deeper. I used the grip to push with both feet. Steel pierced the core. The regeneration stopped. Ouroboros fell with me still attached. The chamber went silent. 7 level pulses crossed my body. Level 47, Shelly's reward carried her to level 28. The dungeon pressure released from the tunnels. The disaster choking Ashfield ended. Shelly dropped to her knees. Years of fear and loss reached her face at once. She cried without hiding it. I sat beside her because standing had become ambitious. "We did it," she said. "You threw powder into a boss's mouth. I respect the commitment." Shelly laughed through tears. Then she thanked me. I told her neither of us reached the core alone. The word us felt stranger than the new levels. Regeneration closed the worst wounds. 17 mana points remained. That was enough to maintain Masquerade on the road back. For one brief moment, we had relief. Fire crossed the chamber. Shelly saw it first. She stepped between the attack and my back. The blast struck her and threw her into my arms. She lost consciousness immediately. Iron Dragon soldiers entered through every exit. Garrett Knox walked behind them carrying a heavy axe. Jeff stood near his side with fresh bruises and old hatred. Garrett looked at Ouroboros' body. Then he looked at the exhausted pair who had killed it. "You saved me the work." I lowered Shelly behind a broken pillar. Garrett admitted he could have killed Ouroboros years earlier. The dungeon kept Ashfield frightened and profitable. People paid the Iron Dragons for routes, protection, and permission to work. The 20 capital adventurers had not died to the boss. Garrett's soldiers killed them after the map funneled them into controlled passages. The map was accurate enough to earn trust. It was false enough to choose where challengers died. Shelly regained enough consciousness to hear him. Her fingers closed around the stained root paper. Garrett expected the confession to break her. Instead, it gave her one more reason to remain awake. The hollow was clear. The human disaster had been waiting outside the boss room. Garrett raised his axe. Ouroboros was dead. Shelly was crying. Then the men who had waited for us stepped forward. Garrett Knox lowered his axe while the Iron Dragon soldiers tightened their ring. Shelly remained behind the broken pillar with a burn across her back. I stood between her and every exit. Garrett looked at my damaged human form and smiled. He was level 50. I was level 47 after a boss fight. His soldiers understood the gap, so did I. Garrett ordered them to take Shelly alive and leave me for him. The first 6 attacked together. I dropped Masquerade from both arms and met them with shapeshifter strength. One sword broke against my forearm. I used the broken half to pin its owner to the wall. A spear crossed my ribs. Regeneration closed around the shaft. I pulled the soldier forward and threw him into 2 others. The ring changed formation. Archers moved behind shield users. Garrett's people had practiced killing exhausted challengers. They had not practiced fighting someone who treated wounds as handles. Shelly forced herself upright. She threw the stained map into Garrett's face. 20 people trusted this. Garrett let the paper fall. 20 people were profitable. The answer removed the last hesitation from her blade. Shelly attacked the nearest soldier from behind the pillar. Her first strike opened a route instead of chasing Garrett. She was still fighting for exits and civilians while injured. Jeff saw her move and rushed the weakened side. I intercepted him! He stopped outside my reach this time! Garrett already beat the boss you struggled against. Then he should have done it before children became labor. Jeff threw poison powder toward my face. I used one soldier as a shield. The powder covered his armor. His own formation dragged him away. Garrett entered before I could pursue Jeff. The axe hit my crossed arms and drove me through a pillar. Both bones broke. Regeneration began repairing them. Garrett crossed the distance before they finished. His knee struck my chest. The wall behind me cracked. He grabbed the mask and tore Masquerade away from half my face. Gray skin appeared beneath the human mimic. Garrett laughed. The city's hero is a dungeon animal. The city's ruler hides behind one. He hit me again. Pure crystallization covered both hands. Skin turned diamond hard from the wrists forward. The next punch opened my chest and emptied the air I did not need. Regeneration kept the body moving. The mana reserve dropped faster. Garrett understood the healing cost. He attacked without giving me a recovery window. Each blow forced a repair. Each repair shortened Masquerade. The human shape flickered across the monster beneath it. Soldiers watched their leader dismantle the pale stranger. Confidence returned to the formation. Garrett wanted the crowd to see me fail as a monster. He did not know I was 3 levels from another evolution. I searched the room for enough experience. Most soldiers were injured but alive. Killing them for a threshold would protect me and stain the rescue. Jeff solved the moral arithmetic himself. He moved toward Shelly with a poisoned blade. She blocked once. The burn across her back weakened the second guard. Jeff raised the weapon for her throat. I reached for a discarded sword. Garrett stepped on my wrist. Watch her die. I used the hand he had pinned. Partial transformation lengthened the fingers beneath his boot. The claws hooked the sword's hilt. I threw the weapon across the chamber. The blade entered Jeff before he reached Shelly. He looked down at the wound. Wounded pride had followed me through every street and room. It finally carried him into the one attack he should have avoided. Jeff fell. The level pulse crossed 48, then 49, then evolution available. Garrett felt the body change under his boot. His smile vanished. I accepted. The shapeshifter frame expanded. 2 new arms unfolded beneath the shoulders. Muscle thickened across the torso. The mask became part of a larger 4-armed face. Every copied feature stabilized at once. The species line appeared. Doppelganger. The evolution doubled my mana reserve. Masquerade no longer needed a time limit to maintain a human mimic. The new body could copy a person's appearance, voice, and surface memory patterns. 2 abilities followed. Dream Eater. Phantom. Garrett drove his crystal fist downward before I finished reading. One upper arm caught it. The impact stopped. A lower hand closed around his wrist. His physical advantage had disappeared between heartbeats. Garrett tried to pull away. Dream Eater activated through the sustained contact. Mana flowed from his arm into mine. The crystal covering cracked. Garrett's face tightened. He punched with a free hand. A second arm blocked it. The drain continued. Soldiers rushed to help him. Phantom bent their fear and shifted my perceived position. The first blade aimed at my back. It struck Garrett's shoulder instead. A spear meant for my ribs entered his side. The formation broke because every fighter saw a different target. Garrett shouted for them to stop. Fear made the command arrive too late. I released him and changed position. 3 soldiers attacked the empty space Phantom left behind. Garrett smashed one aside to clear himself. His people saw their leader injure them while chasing an illusion. Confidence turned into distance. I closed the gap again. Dream Eater reached deeper than mana. Sustained contact opened the mental world beneath Garrett's defenses. The chamber disappeared. I stood inside a dark house from his childhood. A smaller Garrett hid behind a table while an older man beat his mother. The memory was not an excuse. It was the shape of the wound he had built his life around. Young Garrett watched his father raise the bottle again. Power awakened inside the child. He killed the man before the next blow landed. His mother looked at the body. Then she looked at Garrett. Monster. The word did not save her. Years of fear twisted into the belief that strength was the only truth. The child grew into the tyrant who made everyone else kneel first. Garrett found me inside the memory. He wore his current body and swung the crystal fist. I took his father's shape. The attack stopped for 1 fraction. That fraction became the opening. Still need someone weaker to prove you are strong? Garrett roared and attacked. I changed into his mother's shape. The mental world rebuilt the rejection around him. He tried to strike the memory. Every blow landed on another version of himself, a frightened child, a blood-covered teenager, the adult who preserved a dungeon so a city would beg. Dream Eater gave no moral verdict. It gave me the room he had hidden from everyone. I used Phantom to make each fear physical. Garrett's confidence collapsed before his body did. Outside the mental world, my 4 arms kept striking. Every mental hesitation became a real opening. His crystal guard broke. The axe left his hand. Soldiers saw their leader attack empty air while I dismantled him. One tried to intervene. Phantom turned Garrett into the threat in his vision. The soldier struck his own commander. Garrett screamed at them. Nobody trusted what they saw. I ended Dream Eater and returned to the chamber. Garrett stood with blood across his face and terror behind his eyes. He looked past me at parents who were no longer there. I hit him once. The level 50 tyrant crossed the room and did not rise. The Iron Dragon soldiers broke. Some fled. Some dropped their weapons. A few moved toward the exits and started pulling injured civilians free. Garrett had built obedience through fear. Phantom showed how quickly fear changes owners. I reached level 51 from the battle. The evolution stabilized every copied human feature. I could walk through society without a 4-hour clock. The power I wanted had arrived through a body even less human. Then I remembered Shelly. She had seen the entire doppelganger form. She had watched me drain Garrett, enter his mind, and turn his people against him. Her face held fear. I lowered all 4 arms. No speech could make the body smaller. No disguise could undo what she had witnessed. I stepped back and prepared to leave. Shelly pushed away from the pillar. She walked toward me while every surviving soldier moved away. I told her not to come closer. She kept walking. The burn across her back made each step uneven. She reached the 4-armed body and wrapped both arms around it. For once, I had no prepared response. The city tyrant was down. The question that mattered stood inside Shelley's trembling hands. Shelley hugged my four-armed doppelganger body while Garrett's soldiers watched from the floor. Her arms did not reach halfway around the chest. She held on anyway. I felt her shaking. "You are afraid?" "Yes." The answer was immediate and honest. "Then let go." "No." Shelley pressed her face against the body. "Everyone else avoided. You came into that dungeon alone so nobody else would die. You saved the orphanage. You saved the child when you knew the town would hate you. You protected me after I saw everything." She tightened the embrace. "You look terrifying. You are still a good person." The words reached somewhere armor and regeneration had never protected. Shelley tried to say more. Exhaustion ended the argument. Her knees gave out. I caught her before she hit the floor. The surviving iron dragons watched a monster hold the woman who had chosen it. None of them reached for a weapon. I carried Shelley into a side chamber away from Garrett's remaining soldiers. The room had one intact wall and no active fire. I placed her on a folded cloak. Then I checked the burn across her back. The injury was severe but stable. The hug had not reopened it. Her contact with the doppelganger body caused no curse or mental effect. I guarded the doorway until local healers reached the hollow. Every footstep made one thought return. Dream Eater could remove what Shelley had seen. I could erase the four arms, Garrett's memories, and the terror around the fight. She would wake remembering a pale stranger instead of a monster. That would protect her from nightmares, questions, and people using my identity against her. It would also turn her choice into something I owned. Garrett had used fear to control Ashfield. Using memory to create comfortable trust would be the cleaner version of the same crime. Shelley woke while I was still beside the doorway. Her hand moved first to the burn. Then she looked at my human mimic. "You changed back. The face is easier for healers." "Coward!" The word was weak but recognizable. Relief loosened my shoulders. "Stalker!" Shelley smiled once. She remembered everything. I had left the memories untouched. She noticed the hesitation in my face. "What were you planning?" "A terrible kindness. Those are usually just terrible." "Fair." I told her Dream Eater could reach memories through sustained contact. I told her I had considered removing the fight. Shelley stared until discomfort became a physical object. "Did you?" "No." "Why?" "Because the truth belongs to you too." Her hand closed around mine. "Good answer." The healers entered before either of us defined what the hand meant. Ashfield received the hollow news by morning. The dungeon pressure vanished from the roads. Monsters stopped climbing toward homes. The Iron Dragon checkpoints opened because the soldiers had fled or surrendered. People walked into streets they had avoided for years. The orphanage children came first. They followed the caretaker toward the market and counted empty guard posts. One child kicked an abandoned Iron Dragon sign. The sign survived. Her foot complained. Freedom required better footwear. The city did not become safe in one sunrise. The crowd that threw stones still remembered my monster body. Some people called me a rescuer. Others called me the creature that killed Garrett. Most preferred the story where Shelley defeated the Hollow. She had a human face, a visible wound, and excellent public compatibility. Songs started before the rubble was cleared. Shelley corrected the first singer. I helped. Someone else carried the fight. The singer asked for the hero's name. She looked toward the roof where I watched under Phantom. Cole Mercer. The name moved through the square. Some recognized it from the Gargoyle King rumor. Others remembered the masked stranger at the orphanage. The public story remained divided. It was still more human than the stones. The caretaker used the boss reward and recovered Iron Dragon stores for food. Children slept without guards choosing who would work. The guild reopened its counter under people who did not price stolen goods first. I visited after dark to reclaim the 500 gold insult emotionally. The new clerk offered a fair rate. I had no stones left. Timing remained my greatest enemy. Shelley recovered over 2 days. She wanted me to stay until Ashfield stabilized. I wanted the same thing badly enough to distrust it. The new doppelganger form solved the masquerade timer. I could maintain a human appearance indefinitely. Regeneration no longer fought the face for every mana point. Human society had become physically possible. Biological humanity remained unresolved. The body underneath was still a monster built through evolution. Kayla remained in Rockford. The boss killer rumor had given her a direction. The original betrayers had begun facing public consequences. The red-haired disaster maker remained somewhere beyond the kingdom's records. Comfort in Ashfield could become another reason to delay every unfinished promise. At the local pub, Shelley searched for me under every hood. I sat 2 tables away using Phantom to borrow an ordinary face. A wanted notice for the 4-armed monster hung beside her shoulder. The artist had invented 6 arms. Accuracy had died during printing. Shelley approached a hooded stranger near the notice. The man turned around. He was not me. Her disappointment arrived before she hid it. She apologized and sat alone. The bartender asked who she expected. Shelley traced one finger around the cup. Someone important. The words made leaving harder. They also made staying unseen dishonest. I stood and walked past her table. Phantom kept the borrowed face in place. Shelley looked up as I passed. For 1 second her expression changed. She did not recognize the features. Something in the movement felt familiar. I nearly stopped. Then I remembered Rockford, Kayla, and the warning network around the next disaster. I left the pub before the disguise became an excuse. Outside, the doppelganger copied my stable human face. No timer appeared. I could travel among people without counting minutes. Shelley had seen the complete body and stayed. That truth traveled with me farther than any disguise. I headed toward Rockford. Behind me, Ashfield was free. Ahead, my sister waited inside the town where our parents had died. The road carried stronger monsters than the old routes. Dungeon order was shifting again. I did not know whether the next disaster would reach Rockford before me. I only knew the pale stranger no longer needed to run from every human hour. For the first time since Revive, I could choose when the face disappeared. I learned the larger Rockford plan only after the blood crystal exposed the people behind it. At the time, I only knew the road felt wrong. Strong monsters wandered outside their usual territory. Several carried fear residue around their cores. The pattern pointed toward deliberate control instead of migration. On the road, Dream Eater showed its first practical limit. I caught a heavy beast by the throat and drained mana easily. The creature was pinned against stone and could not break contact. A faster predator attacked next. I touched its shoulder for less than a second. Dream Eater started and immediately failed when the target moved away. The ability required sustained contact or a stationary victim. Agile enemies could escape before the drain mattered. My new evolution had not retired the old appetite. I killed the predator and ate enough flesh to restore the reserve. Indefinite human appearance did not mean an ordinary human menu. Progress remained committed to humiliation. Further west, notices carried the consequences Kayla had created. The two adventurers who abandoned her had lost their party licenses. Witnesses knew they escaped while she charged the ogre attack. Nobody wanted them beside another boss. One worked unloading carts under a name he once mocked. The other had left the region. Their punishment was not a dramatic execution. It was every door closing after their cowardice became public. Derek Hale had fallen farther. He was one person implicated in the betrayal that killed me. He was not the unnamed raid captain who physically shoved me. Kayla's pressure and his own guilt destroyed the reputation around him. Reports described sleepless behavior, angry outbursts, and fire attacks against shadows. He blamed Kayla because blaming the dead man had become difficult. The unfinished past was waiting in Rockford. A different threat was moving there first. Only later did I learn Asher Vale had approached Count Miles Holt. Count Miles controlled Hadley, a trade town competing with Rockford. Asher represented the Black Claw Institute, an alchemy network claiming control over dungeon disasters. He offered a demonstration. A boss attack against Rockford would divert trade toward Hadley. Count Miles wanted wealth and leverage against the royal family. Asher wanted funding, access, and proof that fear could control dungeon monsters. Their bargain chose my hometown as a test site. Vera Frost carried the practical weapon. She used a crystal containing Asher's blood and fear-aligned mana. The crystal forced a powerful wolf boss into obedience. The people making that decision did not know I was returning. I crossed the final road into Rockford after dark. The town looked smaller than memory and heavier than grief. Our parents had died during a monster siege 10 years earlier. Kayla still lived in the same house. I watched through the window before approaching. She trained ice arrows in the rear room. Every shot struck the center of a hanging ring. Then she adjusted the ring smaller and kept going. Pride reached me first. Concern followed because she ignored the blood across one knuckle. The engraved dagger lay on the table. Kayla finished the drill and picked it up. Her thumb touched the 2 marks I had added in the dungeon. She held the blade against her chest. "I will find you." The promise ended my hesitation. I entered through the window. Kayla spun with an ice arrow already formed. The point stopped at my face. She saw the pale hair and mask. Then she saw the dagger in my hand. I tapped the sill twice. The arrow shattered before she released it. Kayla crossed the room and hit my chest with both fists. "You made me think you were dead." "I was dead." "That is not a defense." It felt relevant. She hit me again. Then her hands closed in the coat and refused to let go. Anger collapsed into tears. I held her while every prepared explanation became useless. Kayla pulled back and inspected my face. "Is this really you?" I changed one hand into the gray shapeshifter limb. The claws appeared beneath her fingers. I showed the scar pattern from before the raid. Then I returned the hand to human shape. Skeleton first. Ghoul at level 5, shapeshifter at 20, doppelganger at 50. Kayla stared at the hand. "You became 4 different monsters. The system is committed to a theme." She looked toward the kitchen. "Teary people? No." That pause was too long. "Monsters. Mostly monsters." Kayla closed her eyes. "I need a different brother. Inventory is limited." She laughed once through the tears. That sound made the entire road worth crossing. We sat beneath the same window until the room warmed. I told her revive had been consumed. Another death would be permanent. I told her regeneration, masquerade, and the shared mana cost. I explained Shelley only as the adventurer who helped clear Ashfield. Kayla heard the careful wording immediately. Is she pretty? Dangerous. That means yes. Sisters are predators built for specific weaknesses. I redirected toward the original betrayal. The raid captain had shoved me. Derek and another party member carried their own parts in the decision. I did not know every agreement made before the pit. Kayla had already destroyed the deserters' public story. The remaining truth would not be solved in one angry night. She wanted names, locations, and permission to freeze several people. I gave her one name and no permission. The compromise satisfied nobody. I told her I might need to leave again. The road monsters and fear residue pointed toward a larger disaster. Kayla reached for the dagger. You just came home. I came home because you were the reason I kept moving. That does not make leaving less stupid. No, it makes returning mandatory. She looked at the transformed hand and then my face. Come back as whatever body you have. That sentence closed a wound Revive had never touched. Kayla inspected every visible scar. She complained about my weight, clothes, and monster diet. Family acceptance arrived with a nutritional lecture. The reunion lasted until the floor shook. A deep vibration crossed beneath the house. Windows rattled. The expected warning bell remained silent. Kayla's expression changed instantly. Rockford used a chain of tower bells for approaching bosses. A vibration without an alarm meant the network had failed or been silenced. She opened a cabinet and pulled out signal pans used during winter storms. One struck the other with enough force to wake the street. Neighbors opened windows. Kayla shouted for runners to spread the warning. The official bell remained silent. Human cookware became the emergency system. I respected the improvisation. We separated to check the eastern routes. Phantom wrapped my human mimic and erased the visible path. I crossed the roofline toward the watchtower. Then I collided with someone moving beneath the same shadow. Derek Hale appeared in front of me. His clothes were burned. His face looked exhausted enough to belong to a ghost. We recognized each other at the same time. Derek reached for his sword. A weak pulse crossed the town's mana network and vanished. The watchtower had detected the boss. Someone cut the warning before the alarm reached the streets. Derek drew steel. I looked toward the silent tower. The unfinished past found me exactly when the next disaster arrived. Derek Hale attacked before either of us spoke. Flame ran along his sword and painted the street orange. The man who once knew my weakest habits now fought a body he did not understand. He swung at my neck. I stepped aside and struck his wrist with the flat of my blade. The flaming sword crossed the street without him. Derek stared at his empty hand. Then he looked at the pale face he had helped send into a grave. You are dead, I noticed. His breathing broke into a laugh that held no humor. Kayla did this. She told everyone. She ruined us. You abandoned her too. Derek lunged barehanded. I caught his coat and set him against the wall without striking his head. The power gap made him look smaller than anger had promised. He pushed away and reached for the fallen sword. I put one foot on the blade. Move! A boss is approaching Rockford. Derek looked toward the silent watchtower. There was no bell. Exactly. The warning network had failed before the town understood the vibration. Only later did I learn what happened inside that tower. The watchtower guard saw a massive mana signal cross the eastern sensor. A dungeon boss was moving directly toward Rockford. He reached for the alarm rope. Vera Frost appeared behind him before the first bell sounded. Her scythe cut the rope and opened his back in the same motion. The guard fell beside the silent bell. He still managed to drive a spear through Vera's torso. The point came out beneath her ribs. Vera looked down at the wound and smiled. Then the flesh closed around the weapon. She pulled the spear through herself and handed it back. Try again, the guard did. Vera let him stab her twice more. Each wound healed before his hands stopped shaking. She told him she had brought the monsters to Rockford. The confession was not for evidence. She wanted the last offender to understand exactly why the warning had failed. Vera cut him again and then forced regeneration through his body. She repeated the wound and repair until pain stopped producing useful answers. The guard eventually revealed which streets carried emergency runners. Vera left him alive beside the severed rope. Alive was not the same as able to warn anyone. Back in the street, Derek kept staring at me. Guilt had turned every shadow into an accusation. Seeing the actual dead man removed whatever balance remained. He kicked my foot from the sword and grabbed it. Flames surged brighter than before. Derek charged with both hands on the hilt. I turned the edge with my forearm and pushed the pommel into his chest. He stumbled across the stones. His fire went out. Fight me! You are losing to standing! Derek screamed and swung again. I caught the blade between two fingers of partial transformation. Gray claws closed around the steel. The sword stopped. Derek pulled until his hands bled. I took the weapon and set it behind me. He sank against the wall. Why are you not killing me? I had several answers and trusted none of them. Killing him would satisfy the simplest version of the past. It would not tell me what the raid captain planned. It would not protect Rockford from the boss. It would not make Kayla safer. Dream Eater offered a different kind of violence. I could enter Derek's memories and remove the panic controlling him. Garrett's mind had proved how deeply the ability could reach. That option felt efficient enough to be dangerous. I touched Derek's shoulder. He flinched as Dream Eater began to pull. A roar crossed Rockford before I entered his mind. Windows shook along the eastern street. Smaller howls answered from inside the town. The siege had already breached the walls. Derek heard it and looked past me. What did you bring here? Not mine. A white-haired woman stepped from the alley behind him. Vera Frost carried a long scythe and no visible concern. Blood from the watchtower guard marked one sleeve. Derek recognized confidence and mistook it for help. You are with the response force. Vera looked at him as if he had volunteered for an experiment. Please, Derek said. That monster is Cole Mercer. I warned him once. Move away from her. Derek turned toward me instead. That was enough. Vera drove the scythe blade through his back. The point emerged beneath his ribs. Derek looked down at it without understanding. Vera leaned close to his ear. I caused the attack. I prefer receiving proper credit. She pulled the blade free. Derek collapsed between us. Vera raised the scythe to remove his head. I blocked the strike. Metal cracked against my sword. The impact drove both feet into the street. Vera's eyes brightened. You saved the man who killed you. He did not physically shove me. That distinction matters now. It matters to me. Vera attacked again. Her scythe moved faster than Garrett's axe and changed direction halfway through every swing. I caught the shaft, but she released it and struck with her free hand. The blow broke my cheek and sent me through a shop window. Regeneration repaired the bone before I stood. Vera entered through the broken frame. She looked at the closing wound, then a cut along her own palm vanished just as quickly. We both recognized the similarity. Her smile widened. Finally! Outside, wolves poured into Rockford while the warning bell remained silent. Inside the ruined shop, the woman who had disabled it stood between me and the street. Derek bled behind a fallen counter. Every second I spent learning Vera cost someone else time. I raised my blade. She lifted the scythe. The next fight began with Rockford already paying for it. Vera attacked before the glass finished falling. Her scythe crossed my chest and opened 3 ribs. I cut her shoulder in return. Both wounds closed. She laughed at the symmetry. I did not. Regeneration spent mana I needed for the siege. Vera's healing showed no visible reserve at all. I forced her back through the shop and into the street. People were running behind Kayla's improvised warning line. Every missed strike could reach them. Vera understood that immediately. She aimed past me at a fleeing family. I blocked the scythe and took the shaft against my forearm. The bone broke. Regeneration reset it while she attacked the same side again. I used Phantom. My position split across the street. 3 false bodies moved around her. The skill had turned Garrett's soldiers against him. Vera did not look at any copy. Her blade found the real body on the first swing. Phantom needed fear to distort perception. Vera had none. She was not brave. Fear simply had no useful place inside her. The scythe cut my coat and opened the shoulder beneath it. I stepped into the wound and caught her wrist. Dream Eater activated through direct contact. Vera tried to pull away. I held on. The street disappeared. Her mind was a white void without houses, people, or sky. Garrett's memories had formed a painful world. Vera's mind offered empty distance and scattered work tables. On the nearest table, a child stitched 2 dead rats together. The thread passed through skin without hesitation. The child watched for movement and showed disappointment when nothing happened. Another table held larger bodies. A later memory showed Vera cutting an animal apart, healing each section, and recording which pieces still reacted. Pain was not cruelty to her. It was a measurement tool. The watchtower guard appeared deeper in the void. Vera cut him, healed him, and repeated the question. She remembered his screams as timing information. Then I found the technique behind her confidence. Immortal Demon could force catastrophic healing and greater strength. Every repair consumed years from her lifespan. Vera considered that cost acceptable because nobody had ever forced enough repairs. The white void cracked. She tore her mind away from mine. We returned to the street with her forehead against my hand. Vera drove the scythe through my side before contact ended. I released her and rolled across the stones. Dream Eater had given me the rule. It had also shown her that I could reach it. Vera stopped smiling. She attacked harder. The next swing removed my sword from my hand. It struck a wall behind Derek. He had crawled from the shop with one hand pressed over his wound. Vera raised the scythe for my neck. Derek grabbed a broken stone from the street. Flame covered it. He threw the rock into Vera's temple. The hit turned her head and spoiled the killing line. I changed one arm through partial transformation and cut across her ribs. Derek stared at the gray claws. I gave him the only acknowledgement the moment deserved. Useful. Vera answered by stabbing Derek through the arm. He fell behind a support post. I dropped the human mimic completely. The full doppelganger body rose in the street. 4 arms opened around the larger frame. Gray armor hardened across my skin. The permanent mask settled over a face built for other people's nightmares. Vera came out of the wreckage with blood at one corner of her mouth. She looked at Derek. The skin around her eyes tightened. Not fear. Pride had finally noticed the insult. Black-red mana spread from Vera's chest to every vein. White hair darkened at the roots and then silvered again. Lines appeared across her face. Her fingers lengthened around the scythe. Immortal demon! The power repaired her ribs before she straightened. Another line appeared beside her mouth. Every repair takes years, Vera said. You will run out of mana before I run out of life. The technique spent years to create strength and healing her normal body could not supply. Vera had found a cost she believed I could not force her to finish paying. Derek dragged himself behind a support post. Vera noticed and cut the post instead of him. The upper balcony dropped toward the shop doorway. I caught the falling beam with one lower arm. The other 3 blocked her scythe. Derek rolled clear. Vera had made me spend strength saving him again, petty, tactical, and completely in character. I threw the beam at her. She split it and attacked through the fragments. The first scythe blow broke both arms guarding my left side. The second opened my shoulder. Regeneration pulled one arm back into place. The other still hung useless. Vera moved faster again. Immortal Demon restored catastrophic damage, but every full repair aged her. The lines deepened. Her breathing shortened. She was not immortal. She was burning tomorrow to survive the current minute. One wound still would not work. So I stopped giving her one. Vera swept the scythe toward my neck. I caught the blade between 2 palms, the edge cut halfway through both hands. I held it there. My lower right arm seized the shaft. My upper left tore the weapon from her grip. Vera reached for the handle. I hurled the scythe through her torso. The weapon pinned her to the cracked wall. The wound began closing around her own blade. I reached her before it finished. One claw severed the arm, pulling the weapon free. A second strike cut through her center. Before either half could reconnect, all 4 hands caught her. I slammed her into the street. Stone broke beneath us. Immortal Demon flashed once. The light failed to complete the repair. Vera's face had aged years since the technique began. She looked past me toward people running along Kayla's ice lanes. Then she looked back at my 4 arms. No human will love that. The line would have hurt before Ashfield. It would have hurt before Shelley approached the monster everyone else feared. I remembered her arms closing around this body. I remembered her calling me good while she was still afraid. Vera's final weapon had already lost. She did. I ended the fight before Vera could spend another life she did not have. The level pulse struck twice. Level 52. Level 53. The power gain closed wounds across my chest. It restored enough mana to stand. It did not return the people Vera's wolves had already killed. A roof collapsed in the next street. People were still trapped beneath it. Derek remained conscious inside the shop. He had seen the full body, Dream Eater, and Vera's death. Leaving him unchanged meant trusting a man who attacked me on sight. Killing him would turn restraint into a lie because murder was easier. I chose the dangerous middle. Dream Eater opened Derek's memories under my hand. I found every encounter connected directly to me. The raid preparations, the moment he agreed I was expendable, the reports that I had returned, Kayla's accusations, the street fight, and Vera's death. I removed my face, forms, powers, and living return from those memories. I did not erase his entire life. I did not remove the choices that belonged to him. The guilt remained without a clear image attached. Dream Eater released him. Derek opened his eyes and looked around the ruined shop. He did not recognize me. He still started apologizing. I am sorry. I do not know why, but I am sorry. Memory had lost the wound's name. The scar remained. I handed him to an adventurer carrying Survivor's West. He was stabbed. Keep pressure on the back wound. The adventurer looked at my monster body and then Derek. Who are you? Another howl shook the street. I pointed toward the siege. Busy. The adventurer accepted that answer because Rockford had worse questions. I moved toward the wolves. Vera was dead. The disaster she started was still alive. Rockford's eastern street had become a wall of wolves. Defenders held overturned carts between houses. Every gap filled faster than they could close it. Kayla's ice lanes carried children and wounded people toward the square. The remaining fighters were losing ground one doorway at a time. I entered the swarm in my human mimic. The first wolf jumped for a defender's throat. I caught it by the neck and threw it into 2 others. A second bit my arm. Regeneration locked the wound around its teeth. I used the trapped body as a shield against the next charge. Dream Eater drained mana from every wolf I could hold still. Moving targets escaped the pull. Pinned targets became fuel. The limitation mattered less when the street supplied walls. I drove one wolf into stone and drained it. I trapped another beneath a broken cart and took its reserve. Each recovered burst fed regeneration and kept the human mimic stable. The defenders watched the pale stranger cross a fight they had been losing. One former party partner recognized my movement. "Cole Mercer?" There was no time to answer. The ground shook beneath a larger howl. The swarm separated. Fenrir entered Rockford through the broken eastern gate. The level 46 wolf boss stood taller than the carts. Fear mana rolled from its fur. Every smaller wolf lowered its body when Fenrir passed. 10 years earlier, monsters like that killed our parents. I had survived beneath a collapsed roof while Kayla cried beside me. Back then, helplessness lasted through the entire night. This time, I walked toward the boss. "Stay back," I told the defenders. "You will only make this harder." Several looked offended. Then Fenrir broke a stone cart with one paw. They reconsidered teamwork. Kayla held the evacuation lane and shouted, "Everyone clear." Fenrir lunged. I crossed beneath the jaws and cut the front leg. The claws tore my back as I passed. Regeneration closed the wound while I turned. Fenrir attacked again before the repair finished. Its shoulder hit me through a market stall. Wood collapsed around both bodies. I used partial transformation inside the debris. 2 hidden arms caught the wolf's chest. The visible human arms drove my blade beneath one foreleg. Fenrir ripped free and carried the sword wound with it. The boss howled. Every remaining wolf charged at once. I dropped the human mimic. The 4-armed doppelganger rose from the wreckage. Rockford saw the complete body beneath the rescuer's face. Nobody threw a stone. They were too busy surviving the monsters already identified correctly. I tore through the nearest wolves and reopened the path to Fenrir. The boss met me head-on. Claws struck hardened skin. 4 hands caught fur, jaw, and forelegs. Fenrir dragged us across the street. I released one side and drove 2 claws into its shoulder. The boss twisted away before Dream Eater could hold contact. Agile target. Same limit. Fenrir learned the power could not drain what I could not pin. It began striking and retreating. The tactic worked until fear changed direction. People had stopped running from me. They were watching Fenrir run from me. The boss noticed the open eastern gate. It turned and sprinted toward the road. Phantom spread across the exit. The ability did not create real chains. It made fear define where the chains should be. Fenrir already believed I would catch it. That belief became weight. Its legs locked 3 strides from freedom. The wolf strained against an empty road. Nothing physical held it. Terror did. I reached the trapped boss and drove the blade through its neck. Fenrir collapsed at the gate. The level notice rose above the body. Level 54. For one breath, Rockford remained silent. Then the defenders shouted my name. The former party partner repeated it louder. Cole Mercer moved through the square before I reached it. The 4-armed monster who killed Fenrir became the boy Rockford remembered. People called me a living legend. I had no interest in managing a legend during cleanup. "Split into groups," I ordered. "Clear the remaining wolves and check every collapsed house." The cheering became movement. That was more useful. I used the noise to leave the center and return to Vera's body. The fear blood crystal looked purple until I touched it. Then a red thread moved inside. Vera's mana coated the surface. A second signature sat deeper, wrapped around living blood. That blood belonged to Asher Vale. The red-haired alchemist used Vera, Fenrir, and Rockford in one commercial demonstration. Now his binding material was sitting in my palm. His weapon had come with a return address. Extremely considerate villain behavior. The crystal turned hot. One pulse struck my hand, a second pulled west. The red thread stretched like a needle finding north. When I turned south, it bent back west. When I covered it, heat climbed through both wrists. That was enough testing. The artifact controlled a boss, killed a warning network, and survived Vera. I did not need to lick it for additional data. The reaction lasted less than 3 breaths. The direction remained clear. Something connected to Asher had noticed the crystal move. I closed my fingers around it. The clue could point me toward him. The blood inside could also point him toward me. Public Victory placed a private target on my back before Rockford stopped shouting. Daylight showed the bill the night had hidden. Blankets covered bodies beside the Watchtower Road. Families lifted roof beams with shaking hands. The bell rope lay cut across the street. Survivors tied it to a smaller bell and kept directing the wounded. Rockford had survived. Survival still left empty places. A cracked house shifted beside the square. 3 people were searching beneath it. Kayla froze the lower supports. The weight kept pushing through her ice. I stepped beneath the beam in my human mimic and lifted. The people under the roof crawled free. Kayla reinforced the opening until the last woman cleared it. Then the wall came down behind us. Nobody applauded. One rescued man immediately helped lift a different beam. That was rebuilding in plain language. Save one person, hand them enough time to save the next. Kayla passed water to a child near the ice wall. Blood marked one sleeve. None of it was hers. Townspeople stopped beside her and described Fenrir's killer. They mentioned 4 arms, a human face, and a voice ordering everyone back. One witness had already supplied the name. Kayla listened without interrupting. Then she found me at the edge of the square. Her eyes moved from my face to the crystal hidden in my fist. You saved all of them! We lost people! I know! She looked toward the covered bodies. You still came back strong enough to protect the town. You kept the promise. 10 years earlier, I was the child who survived while our parents did not. After Revive, I became the monster my own sister nearly killed. Every level since then made helplessness more temporary. Kayla's pride paid that promise better than any rank board. She touched my wrist. Are you leaving again? Soon. Her grip tightened. Use the door next time. There she was, emotional recovery complete. Window crime remained unforgiven. I opened my hand enough for her to see the crystal. The person behind this can feel it. Staying beside you makes Rockford easier to hit twice. Kayla did not like the answer. She understood it. Mara Quinn and Captain Elaine Hart reached Rockford after the siege. They had followed the same red-haired disaster pattern from Ashfield. Mara saw the crystal and reached for records instead of her weapon. Captain Hart placed 3 damaged pages across a crate. The first described mutant monsters spreading through the countryside roughly 100 years earlier. Witnesses reported a red-haired viscount with a birthmark near the events. The second page concerned a court mage executed roughly 300 years earlier. He carried similar features and was blamed for cursing a town. The third record reached back roughly 1,000 years. After 7 days of disasters, an unknown red monster appeared. The descriptions resembled each other. The records did not prove one immortal body survived every century. They proved the same image, method, or inheritance kept returning around catastrophes. The current operation was less uncertain. Asher Vale linked to Vera, Blackclaw, Count Miles, and the blood in my hand. The crystal pulsed west. Mara slid the records toward me. She did not reach for a weapon. Captain Hart watched the red thread bend inside the crystal. If that points toward him, he may feel it too. He already did. Only later did I learn how complete the warning had been. A matching blood focus in Asher's possession went dark when Vera died. The link told him someone had killed his operative and taken the crystal. Reports from Rockford added a 4-armed doppelganger and Fenrir's death. One surviving witness gave him my name, Cole Mercer. Asher did not know every evolution or the full reach of Dream Eater. He knew I had killed Garrett, defeated Vera, saved Rockford, and held his blood. Losing Vera hurt his operation. Losing the crystal could expose it. The clue in my hand pointed toward the planner behind the disasters. The same clue marked me as the person who could ruin him. We became aware of each other through the same blood. Neither of us had reached the other yet. Would I trace Asher first, or would Asher reach me?